Hello, hey everyone. So, yes, so it's 2 o'clock Eastern time. So my name is Steve Roses and I'm with the Hein Company, also known as HeinOnline. And I'm joined by my colleague Tim Hooge, who is here. And you
Hey
can,
everyone.
and we're very excited to be celebrating Pride as well as doing our demonstration on the area. So it's very exciting. And I first want to say that we have been around since the 1950s, as a book publisher, and then HeinOnline came about in 2000. So Hein has existed since 2000, and since 2015 or so, we've had a group of collections called HeinOnline Academic. And many of you already subscribe to HeinOnline Academic. Some of you are on trial. Some of you don't happen to have HeinOnline Academic. So it's a good variety. This happens to be a trial of HeinOnline Academic, you can see here, and just shows you some of the databases that are part of HeinOnline Academic. And now we're going to use this as the basis for demonstrating some aspects of the history and law and other related topics regarding pride and gender identity and sexual orientation. So let's first, I thought it would be good to, am I recording? Yes, I am. I already did that. I thought it would be good to give you an overview of some of these databases before going in and doing some research. So our largest collection, or we also call it a database in HeinOnline Academic, is the Law Journal Library. And this happens to have almost 3,000 journals. We keep adding new journals every single month. This has 2,958 journals, and every single journal in HeinOnline goes all the way back to issue 1. Which means if a journal started in 1898, we're going to go all the way back to 1898. All the journals are fully searchable, and we always go all the way back to the history of a journal. Now, we also have a variety of think tanks in here, such as Brennan Center for Justice, etc. We also have we just added another think tank, NOMOS, American Society for Political and Legal Philosophy. And then we have lots of government documents in here. So the Federal Register is an important part, especially in this area, because I'm going to want to talk about some of the executive orders that you can find on the Federal Register. Another place you can find executive orders in HeinOnline Academic is the U.S. Presidential Library. And then you have things like federal legislation, such as the U.S. Code. We have congressional documents, such as the Congressional Record, congressional hearings, a lot of materials in this area. In congressional documents and congressional hearings. We're just going to scratch the surface as far as what we can cover in this half hour. If you're looking for books and monographs and treatises, we have over 17,000 monographs and treatises in legal classics. We call it legal classics, but it actually is a lot of different topics related to the law in addition to the law itself. And the same with our journal library. We call it the Law Journal Library still, but there's all sorts of human rights, political science, environmental, etc., criminal justice, civil rights. It just goes on and on. We keep adding more and more journals. And we also have things like historical information. What kind of historical information? A whole thing on history of international law, foreign relations of the United States, etc. So there's a whole international dimension. There's a whole multidisciplinary dimension. And that's why, because of this multidisciplinary dimension, that's why HeinOnline is so unique in its ability to use for research gender studies issues, sexual orientation issues. And so right now I'm going to go into a search. In this case, I wanted to show you a little history. So I'm going to put in Stonewall, as in the Stonewall Rebellion or Stonewall Uprising, and I'm going to put the Mattachine Society, an important organization in the history of gay rights. So I'm going to put Mattachine Society. And we can look in all these databases. We could just look in the journal library. We could look in just government documents or cases. In this case, I'm going to start with all databases. I'm going to research in all of HeinOnline Academic, and then we could fine tune later if we wanted to. So let's put in the search here, and you'll notice we have a variety of results, and there's some really on-point results. So here's a great article that from the University of Richmond from 2020. It says, from the Mattachine Society to Megan Rapinoe, tracing and telegraphing the conformist visionary divide in the LGBT rights movement. That could be an interesting article to look at. Let's see what else we have. Here's a nice sort of historic overview of LGBTQ rights movement in New York State, the Stonewall 50, reflecting on the history of LGBTQ rights. That could be interesting. That happens to be a 2019 article. And then here's the birth, this is specifying 1961, the birth of gay legal equality arguments. And this is sort of more of a historic article because it goes back, was written in 2001 to 2003. One of the unique things that you might see when you're looking at these articles, you can see how often they've been accessed in a rolling period on HeinOnline. You can see other articles that cite this article, and you can go to the full text of those articles. For example, let's look at this, January 27th, 1961, the birth of gay legal equality arguments. This has been cited by 7 other articles. You could click here and you could actually go to those 7 articles. And this is an important enough article that it's actually been cited by judges in 2 different cases. And we could go to the full text cases of those. And also it's been accessed 3 times in a rolling period on HeinOnline. So that could be an interesting article. This one, litigating for lesbian and gay rights, has been cited 182 articles. We could go to those. It's been cited in 3 cases, and it's been accessed 15 times. So I'm just gonna pick this article from 2020 because it's more recent. Of course, you can put these results in relevance order. You can put it in recency order. You can put it oldest to newest. You have a lot of choices and what have you can do this. And so this article really deals with the history of gay rights in America. And let me just show you some of the functionality you can use when you're using this article. So right here, it says download, you can download a PDF of this section, this article right here. You could print, and you just click on here. Now, even if if there's someone you want to send this article to or any document online and they don't happen to be a subscriber, you can still send them, or even on trial, you can still send them an email PDF of this article. And you can even specify what citation format you want to send this to. So if we click here on this mailbox, you can just send that, and you can actually say, oh, I want to send this in Chicago or MPA, or maybe if it's a legal argument, Blue Book or something like that. Now, this is a fully searchable PDF, but if you wanted to change this to just regular text, you could click here and it would change it to text. So let's show you that. We're just going to click here, and you can toggle between the PDF and the image. Both are fully searchable here. And if you want, you can get a permalink to this article. Let's say you're teaching a course and you really want to be able to refer to this in a syllabus. You can create a permalink right here. And if you fill out a branding form when you have a trial or subscribe, you can actually make your permalinks so they work remotely, not just on campus. So that's very easy to do. And then we recommend for people who are on trial or also people who subscribe, we recommend you create a MyHein account, which is free, and a MyHein profile. And that allows you to get table of contents updates, to rerun your query searches, to save different documents you find. That's this symbol right here. That's called MyHein. You can now even use your Google sign-in as your username and password for MyHein. So anytime you see this symbol, it's very useful in saving your documents. And then if you want to go to other pages within this document, boom, now you're on other pages. If you want to make this full screen, you can do that. And then you can shrink it back so it's not full screen. And then here, if let's say you found this particular article on the history of gay rights, Mattachine Society, Stonewall, let's say it was specifically really relevant to the research you're doing. You can instead of doing a new query search, you could do a more like this search, which is an algorithm that finds the most interesting words in the article and finds new results. So let's click on more like this right here. And you see it picked up on certain terms in here. It picked up on the word LGBT. It picked on Mattachine Society, visionary, LGBT people. And let's say let's say the word conformist is not that important to our search. Well, first I like to make sure the new results are good because there might be some really great results in here. So let's see what kind of results we got from this new, more like this search. This is another kind of historic look at LGBT rights from one to Windsor, 60 years of the movement for LGBT rights. So there's lots of different sources of sort of historical summaries. Here's They Stood Up for Us, Advocating for LGBT Elders in Long-Term Care. This is an article that specifically relates to healthcare and long-term care for LGBT elders. Here's The Right to Be Heard, One Magazine, Obscenity Law, and the Battle Over Homosexual Speech. So there's lots of different aspects that you could research here. So it really depends on what's interesting to you. Here's an article on LGBT identity and crime. Notice it's been accessed 520 times in a rolling period. Probably very, very relevant. This is from June 17. So you might say, oh, this is really interesting, and you open this up to the full text. Notice we have a whole taxonomy in here. You can see some of the subjects in the taxonomy: community and society studies, labor law, criminal justice, gender and sexuality, government and politics, family studies. Also some topics. So it goes categories, subjects, topics, discrimination, social group issues, employment, equal employment, evidence, fair employment, homosexuality, sexuality, legislation. And you can use these topics and subjects to fine tune your searches if you want. But we have a large number of good results here. And I would recommend, for example, if we got good results like this, just going through them and seeing what is most relevant to your research. But if you wanted to, you could fine tune this search. For example, maybe for your new search, Mattachine Society is not that important, but and LGBT people might be very important. And then you might want to put in Stonewall because it's not specifically mentioned here. And you might want to specifically just limit it to 2000 to 2021. Now you're running a new search that's very fine-tuned. And you have all sorts of other results and some of the same results, but different terms are boosted. Here's an article, How the Right to be Sexual Shaped the Emergence of LGBT Identity, the Politics of Eradication and the Future of LGBT Rights. So many different ways to go at researching this. Okay, now that's a search. That was very interesting. Now I'm going to show you one of our advanced searches. So if you're, say, in our Law Journal Library, which is the source, sometimes we like to recommend people start with the search in the Law Journal Library because it's where so many periodicals are, and it's also one of our largest collections in HeinOnline. So if we were to go to advanced search within the Law Journal Library, actually I'm still in all databases, so I'm going to, okay, well, let's do a Venn diagram search. And let's do a search on, I'm going to put in gender identity and sexual orientation. And I'm going to try that. Actually, I've never done this exact search. I'm going to put protected class in here. If that's too specific, I'll change it after. But let's see what we come up with in the Venn diagram search. Okay, so now this is a very useful if you're in a university and you want your students want to be able to visualize the data. This is a very good way to teach searching overall, and also teaching if you have dealing with a visual student, showing them how to visualize the data within a collection. So this is the universe of results for the term sexual orientation. And notice this is interactive, so you have 82,888 results. Here are the results for gender identity. This is another group. This is 23,356 results. And this is the protect class. I actually meant protective class. So I'm going to rerun it just to get more accurate result for what I intended. I didn't mean protective class either. I meant protected class. Sorry about that. Okay. Hopefully, I'll come to the result. Okay, here we are. So here are the results for sexual orientation. Here are the results for gender identity. And here are the results for protected class. Now, here, if I click here, this is just the documents that have both the term sexual orientation and the terms protected class. And there are about 5,903 results, and we can look through any of these different results in here. Interesting stuff. And here are the intersections between the words, the phrase sexual orientation and gender identity. Just this red area here. And notice there are 15,886 results that have both of those. But what we really want to see here are the terms that have all three, the results that have all three of these terms: sexual orientation, gender identity, and protected class. Where is the overlap? It's just this red area. How many people, how many results? 1,908 results. Now, there's really good odds that these 1,908 results are pretty interesting if you're searching for this area. For example, now I did this in all the databases. You can see over here, it's all databases, or I could have picked just some of the databases. For example, Legal Classics and the Law Journal Library, or Legal Classics and the Federal Register, or Women and the Law and US Code, et cetera, et cetera. But in this case, I'm in all databases and we have the different results here. And here is an article, An Unsettled Question, the Emergence of Sexual Orientation Discrimination under Title VII. Title VII is going to be an important part of the research in this area. Gender confusion, the need for effective legislation to protect against gender identity discrimination. All sorts of things here. Here's an article, Sexual Orientation, Gender Norm Nonconformity, and Trace-Based Discrimination, Cautionary Tales from Title VII and Argument for Inclusion. Okay, so you can find all sorts of things. Let's just open up one of these and look at some of the features. Now, let's say you find this article to be really interesting: sexual orientation, gender nonconformity, and trait-based discrimination. We could cite this article. We could use it in an essay that we're writing. We could put it together in some kind of thesis that's being written. And how would you cite it? Well, you click on Cite here, and you can see we have all these different formats. Whether we're talking about Blue Book, you might use MLA, you might use Chicago. If you're dealing with a research paper in Canada, you might use the McGill. If you're dealing with Australia, you might use AGLC. And here's where you can export to RefWorks. You can work with Zotero, EndNote, and now as of a few months back, we have Noodle Tools. And we hear good things about actually of all of them. So regardless of which of that software you have, we work with all of them. So that's just something to be aware of. Once again, the same functionality we saw as before. Here's where you would get a permanent link to this page. Here's where you would email this to someone. Okay, let me show you another interesting part of HeinOnline Academic. So let's say we have a whole collection on women and the law, and there's a lot of things in here regarding gender identity and so forth. I'm going to open this up. Notice just here, all kinds of different topics that come up in the study of women and the law, and everything from feminism and legal theory, things like abortion rights, etc. But let's do a search, in this case, on gender identity and sports, for starters. And I'm going to actually put in, I don't know, NCAA, or I'll put in college here. Now, this is just because we're in the Women in the Law collection. It's not searching all of the results in HeinOnline Academic. It's just searching the specific results that are in the specific subcollection called Women in the Law. So we could then go from here to a full HeinOnline Academic search, or we could just look at these. As you see, this is very rich with really great results. And you could put this in volume date, oldest first order, volume date, newest first, relevance order. Let's put newest first. Okay, so now you have, let's look at this, reaffirming the value of the sports exception to Title IX general non-discrimination rule. Okay, and there you have a great result there, and that could be a good starting point for your research in the area. Now, you might want to look at some case law. So let's look at a case, and this happens to be a case that is particularly valuable as far as marriage equality. So let's go to our US Supreme Court Library. And this is a case called Obergefell versus Hodges. And let's put in Obergefell v. Hodges. Now, you might remember if you've used HeinOnline before, we sort of put some landmark cases. These are our most used cases in HeinOnline, the ones that are used the very most. But there are many that are also very rarely used that don't just happen to be, like Roe versus Wade. There's not going to be too many cases that are used more than Roe versus Wade. So we put that up there. And of course, lots of students regularly search things like Dred Scott and Plessy v. Ferguson and Brown versus Board of Education. So these are your landmark cases. But Obergefell and Hodges is also a landmark case in the marriage equality area. Let's put that in here, and we're going to search for it, and we're going to go to it. Now, here is the preliminary print, and then here is where it is in the official Supreme Court book. Now, if you see the symbol that says Oyez, whenever you see that symbol, that means you can actually listen to the oral arguments of the case. And we have that for the Supreme Court cases going back to the mid-50s all the way to current. There's a group that does Oyez out of Chicago, Kent, and then Cornell. And that allows you to listen to the audio transcripts, if you will, of cases. But here we have the judicial opinion. And this was argued April 28th, 2015 on same-sex marriage. This was definitely an important case in the area. And then that can start your research by looking at this area, and then you might want to find out the cases that have cited this area, of which there are many, by the way. And if you wanted to cite this particular case, you can go here, and then you have all these different formats for citing this particular case. Now, if you were searching something like, for example, Barack Obama had a very important executive order that established, it was Executive Order 13672, I believe, that established sexual orientation and gender identity as basically protected class. It read them into other existing executive orders and law. And so there are two places to find executive orders in HeinOnline Academic. One is the U.S. Presidential Library. Let's just take a look at this. So U.S. Presidential Library is where you'll go if you're looking for historical papers of the presidents. I mean, it goes back to George Washington. It goes all the way to Biden, Obama, and Trump, between compilation of presidential documents, messages and papers, and the presidents and public papers. But you could do a search in here, and you could put something like gender identity, sexual orientation, or you could put something like Executive Order 13672. But this is not the only place where you can find executive orders in HeinOnline. There's also the Federal Register. And the Federal Register goes all the way back. We have Federal Register going to the very beginning of when the Federal Register started, but it also is updated daily. So we have the very most recent aspects of the Federal Register. So it has the historic aspects of the Federal Register all the way to current. And so here you could put in a specific volume and page number, or you could do a search, or you could do an advanced search. You could even see what Federal Register documents have cited executive. Let's put in executive order, and I'm going to put in, well, I'll put in 13672. So surely Executive Order 13672 has been discussed in other Federal Register references. So let's take a look. And as you can see, it has been, there are 46 results. Here's something on federal labor contract compliance, talking about prohibiting discrimination based on sexual orientation and gender identity by contractors and subcontractors. Here's other documents here. Here's something from the Department of Commerce, but it actually cited the Executive Order 13672. So you can see, how influential that executive order has been, because it's been cited in a number of other citations in the Federal Register. So that is very valuable to research. Now, you could do lots of other searches here, obviously. For example, you could go into something like the Legal Classics collection. And let's put in a term see if there are any books, and these are full text books. See if there are any books in this area. And here we have something from Jailhouse Lawyer's Manual, Special Information for Lesbian, Gay, Bisexual, and Transgender Prisoners. Let's see what else we have here. Here's Peaceful Coexistence, Reconcile Non-Discrimination Principles with Civil Liberties, a briefing before the United States Commission on Civil Rights held in Washington in 2016. Let's take a look at that. That seems like an interesting document. And here you have a very interesting document. It's Commissioner Statements and Rebuttals. And you could email this to someone. You could do the same type of functionality. You could cite this. Notice we have all the different citation formats for that. So let's look at another document. We could go into another part of HeinOnline. Let's do a search in the Brennan Center for Justice publications at NYU School. I don't know, or actually, we don't have that much time here. I'm going to start showing you some, because we only have this limited time, I'm going to show you some of the customer service things that will help you in your search, because that's where you're going to get the most value. Go to your live chat. We have a live chat that works from 8:30 to 6, Monday through Friday, Eastern time. So there's a lot of overlap in terms of time with many of your schedules. Use this. If you're trying to find something on HeinOnline and you have a subscription or a trial, go to live chat. If you want to see what we've added in a given month, because we're always adding every single month. This is a unique thing about HeinOnline. Not only are we updating the different parts, we're adding a lot of new stuff that hasn't even been in HeinOnline before. We keep adding and updating at the same time. So if you want to see our monthly content release, you go here. Now, if you wanted to see the help resources, we have the LibGuides. So many of the key collections, we have a LibGuide with all sorts of suggestions for how to do research in the different given collections. You can use, your institution can use our LibGuides for free at no obligation to any cost. You can use our LibGuides. Feedback, we welcome feedback. Give us positive and negative feedback. We love your emails. Give us, we have all sorts of videos. We have a whole YouTube channel on videos and how to use HeinOnline. Go to, just Google YouTube and HeinOnline, and you'll be able to go to our YouTube channel. You want to use our knowledge base to find out all sorts of different things, our user guide, various presentations we've done, videos, helpful hints, go to our knowledge base. You want to get up-to-date information or historical information on how to find specific things in HeinOnline, go to our HeinOnline blog. We have a free blog, and that comes out a number of times per week, and definitely subscribe to that. So let's see. I don't know if we have much time to answer any questions, but I'm sure Tim has been answering questions all along. Tim, are there any questions that we have time to answer in the remaining 2 minutes of our presentation?
You know, I think I touched upon quite a few of them here in the chat.
Okay.
Let's see here. Is there a way to limit the results to only subscribed resources?
Yes, well, I'll let you take that question, but generally you're only seeing the material that you subscribe to. So
yeah, what you could do if you wanted to do a search, for example, where you select the specific databases that you want results from, that would help you to limit to and get results just to your subscribed resources. Otherwise, no, we don't have a way of necessarily just wiping out the material that you don't currently have access to. And
you can see search all databases. You can go in here and pick and choose which databases you want to search. For example, if you know that you subscribe to the Law Journal Library, which all people who get HeinOnline Academic do, then you know that you're only looking at a database you subscribe to, and that way you've selected what you're going to research, so you don't get results outside of what you subscribe to. Same with if you get legal classics, same with if you get women in the law, etc. So yeah. So if you have questions, sorry.
I was doing a practice search for ACT UP, the organization, and I was getting a few results and kind of floating around through there. But is there a way to specify that I'm looking for an entity or an organization as opposed to just a keyword?
Yes, well, that's a good question. So let's say you were doing, and I think we're going long. We only have a half hour for this. I'll go a couple minutes longer. If you put in a search for ACT UP, like a general search for ACT UP, and let's say I put in ACT UP and Pride, and we're doing a search here. And then you could use the facets on the left. Notice you could use the facets on the left in terms of location, person, organization. Now, if ACT UP is one of the organizations on here, you could certainly limit it to that way. You can limit it by date. You could limit by collection. You could limit by title, so you're just looking at certain titles. You could limit by section type, so you would just say looking at an article. And you could look, if you knew that there was a noted person who was the head of ACT UP and that came out in this here, you could specify here. So you can use all of these facets to limit your search.
That's great, thank you.
You could put any term in here, like additional terms to limit your search, or you could use proximity. You could go into an advanced search, and you could use the template and just specify some details of what you're looking for. And you could even make suggestions in the catalog of what you're looking for in an advanced search, so you could really fine tune. And so using all these tools, limiting tools, you could definitely get exactly what you're looking for. And then once you found one or two documents that are exactly what you're looking for, you could use the more like this tool to find even more of those. So yeah, definitely. Okay, well, I think we're out of time. I've gone 2 minutes too long, but definitely send some additional questions if you like. I'm going to put my email right here. sroses@wshein.com, and I'm going to put Tim Hooge's right here. So we have that, sroses@wshein.com and thooge@wshein.com. That's W.S. Hein spelled WSHEIN.com. Tim Hooge is THOOGE@WSHEIN.com. Sometimes the transcription does not write that very well, so I'd be happy to give anyone the email after this event. Okay, thank you for your patience. Sorry I went over. I'd like to answer other questions and follow up. Have a wonderful day, and thanks so much for joining. Everyone, have a great day.